Spectrum TV Select plans and stream across your devices.
Wow, you guys are lifesavers.
That's what you think.
In action.
The Walking Dead: Dead City, exclusively on AMC and AMC Plus.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. Top Justice Department officials finished questioning Ghislaine Maxwell Friday for the second day in a row. Maxwell is the former girlfriend of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The Trump administration is working to quell weeks of backlash over its handling of the Epstein case. President Trump continues to seemingly deflect involvement with Epstein, telling reporters he hasn't thought about a pardon for Maxwell.
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something. I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
Well, deportation flights have begun from the controversial detention center in Florida known as Alligator Alcatraz. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said the flights are operated by the Department of Homeland Security, adding roughly 100 detainees have been sent to other countries. Critics have condemned the facility as cruel and inhumane.
It was never intended to be something where people are just held and we just kind of twiddle our thumbs.
Sauna-like conditions Friday, threatening to break records in major Northeast cities. More than 80 million people in the eastern half of the U.S. are under at least a level 3 of 4 major heat risk. Heat indexes will surpass triple digits for many, including Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and also Philadelphia. And that is a look at your Spectrum News in 90.
Welcome to The Big Deal. I'm Errol Lewis, national political anchor at Spectrum News. This program focuses on the future of our country and its people. For the second straight week, the controversy around the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking case was the big deal in Washington, as the White House tries to move past it. Reporting by the Wall Street Journal revealed that the Department of Justice told President Trump that his name appeared in the investigative files of this case. This comes as calls continue to grow on Capitol Hill, including from many of the president's Republican supporters, to release all of the files. While the president has not yet been accused of any wrongdoing, and there are no allegations of a cover-up that have been sustained, criticism of the administration's handling of the case has continued, with the White House trying to steer the conversation to other topics. Here's President Trump on Friday trying to distance himself and urge Americans to talk about anything except for the Epstein case.
We should really focus on how well the country's doing, or they should focus on the fact that Barack Hussein Obama led a coup, or they should focus on the fact that Larry Summers from Harvard, that Bill Clinton, who you know very well, and lots of other friends, really close friends of Jeffrey Summers, should be spoken about, because they don't talk about them, they talk about me. I have nothing to do with the guy.
Joining me now with more are two top political analysts. Susan Arbetter is a political anchor for Spectrum News 1 in Albany, New York. Curtis Jackson is a political anchor for Spectrum News 1 in Columbus, Ohio. And Susan, the Department of Justice has come under a lot of heat for all of this, and they've been trying to divert attention from the Epstein case, clearly. Just this week, Trump's Attorney General, Pam Bondi, sued New York City over its sanctuary city policies, which I guess is a new version of that lawsuit she filed against the state of New York earlier this year. In that case, didn't Governor Kathy Hochul already vow that New York is not going to back down?
Yeah, absolutely, she did, Errol. In fact, the governor called Bondi's initial effort back in February smoke and mirrors because the governor said that what this all boiled down to was a routine civil suit about the state's so-called green light law, which allows immigrants to apply for driver's licenses and which was enacted in part to improve public safety on the roads. This latest lawsuit is against New York City, not the state. It was filed in the Eastern District of New York, and it claims that the city's sanctuary policies have, quote, allowed dangerous criminals to roam the streets and commit dangerous crimes within the community. DOJ is also arguing that these policies are an intentional effort to obstruct federal immigration enforcement and should be declared unlawful. But as the governor has repeatedly stated, sanctuary laws have already been tested in court, and she feels that the state and the city are on the right side of history.
Okay, and now, meanwhile, Curtis, the House of Representatives is on a month-long recess after the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, sent everybody home early to avoid a vote that would have demanded the release of the Epstein files. When the House does reconvene in September, though, they have a lot of work, right? I mean, we're heading for another possible government shutdown.
Yeah, it's the same sort of dilemma that they faced back in March, Errol, when they voted on funding the government. 10 Democrats crossing the aisle to vote in favor of that bill. But we're looking at a different situation than what we were looking at in March, especially when you consider that there's very little upside, as Schumer rightly points out, in shutting down the government. If they get to some sort of deal, which highly seems likely, then Democrats have to worry about Republicans clawing back any of those concessions with later votes, as we saw with the situation with NPR. And then, of course, there's the political optics of all of this. Right now, Americans are not in very much support of the big, beautiful bill. They don't like necessarily what the administration is doing on tariffs, the aggressive deportations, or the handling of the Epstein case. And yet, the president's approval rating remains flat, and his disapprovals, while slightly higher than half, are still not so much that he's losing any popularity overall, and certainly not with the base of his party.
Okay, so now, Susan, let's talk about something else that's not so popular, the downsizing of federal agencies. This week, the Environmental Protection Agency announced it is planning to get rid of its scientific research arm, which helps guide environmental policy and regulation. Meanwhile, over at the Department of Education, 1,300 employees have already been fired. 500 more have opted for early retirement, with more cuts coming. And then last week, the Trump administration announced a plan to transfer the Education Department's key functions over to other agencies. So put all of that in context. What does it mean to reduce headcount and programs to this extent?
Yeah, well, it means a lot, Errol. There will be both immediate and long-term fallout from these changes from, for example, school districts at additional financial risk, that's according to Moody's, to students with disabilities not finding adequate or equitable education, to others looking for student loans for medical school. The DOE had more than 4,000 employees last year, so losing those 1,800 staffers, as you mentioned, is a 45% reduction. So there's bound to be other unintended consequences, and not just for students. There have already been reports of school administrators just having a tough time getting anyone on the phone from DOE to answer their questions.
Okay, so now, Curtis, in our last minute, I saw your report from your show, Capitol This Week, about a ruling by the state Supreme Court that declared Ohio's congressional districts to be unconstitutional, the district lines. Explain how your state plans to adjust and how this could all affect national party politics and who controls Congress.
Yeah, this all has to do with the drawing of congressional maps. The way the system works is that there's a redistricting commission. This is not an independent commission. It's a commission of politicians, most of them Republican. They agreed to a set of maps, though, for 2024 that are considered unconstitutional by the state Supreme Court. However, the landscape has changed a lot since then. There's a 6-1 conservative majority on the state Supreme Court, which seems to to indicate that the redrawing of the maps for congressional districts, which must occur again because of the failed agreement of Democrats the first time around, seems to suggest there will be very little pushback this time when it comes to the state Supreme Court. There was a lot of pushback before, but that swing vote, Maureen O'Connor, has since stepped down from the court because of term limits. What that all means is that there's a 10-5 split right now among congressional districts, 10 Republican, 5 Democrat seats. There are at least 2 of those seats that are very vulnerable. Marcy Kaptur, longest serving woman in Congress, and then Amelia Sykes. This could be the Republicans' opportunity to get back control of those seats and help to balance the power, help the balance of power in Congress in favor of the Republicans.
Okay. Thank you very much, Curtis. Thank you, Susan. We're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, I'll speak with a tax policy expert about no tax on tips, which is now the law under President Trump's tax bill. Stay with The Big Deal.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Bring it to the party. Bring it to the top. Bring it to the party. Never gonna stop.
Enjoy. Unwind. Connect. With Spectrum TV On Demand. From the latest hit movies you've been waiting to watch to your favorite comfort shows and more, all available instantly for you to stream. Create the all-around entertainment experience you've always wanted with Spectrum TV On Demand. Browse over 80,000 on-demand titles today.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Back with The Big Deal, where we are continuing to analyze President Trump's tax and spending bill and what it will mean for everyday American families. Today, we're taking a look at no tax on tips, one of Trump's main economic promises from the presidential campaign. Here's how it will work. Up to $25,000 earned from tips can now be deducted from federal income taxes, but the amount that workers can deduct decreases for those making over $150,000 a year. $100 will be cut for every $1,000 earned over that $150,000 threshold. The policy starts this calendar year and it expires in 2028, just before President Trump is set to leave office. Spectrum News reporter Anthony DeBruzzi spoke to a Wisconsin woman who pushed hard for the no tax on tips policy by taking a trip to the nation's capital.
I'm here in Washington, D.C. today to support no tax on tips.
Coming from 25 years in the corporate world, Malachi Krajewski realized she needed more flexibility to focus on her son, who has type 1 diabetes. So her family decided to open a small business. And about a year and a half ago, she also started driving for DoorDash to help pay for medical expenses. Krajewski says the tips she makes on deliveries can make a real difference.
So for us personally, it would mean more money in our pockets to be able to cover some of those medical needs in our
our family. And I know there's a lot of different dashers across the board that are in very much the same situation we are.
Last month, as the president pushed to get something he could sign to his desk, Krajewski shared a stage with him and others who would benefit from the bill.
Among the countless citizens who will benefit from these tax cuts is Malachi Krajewski, a devoted mom and DoorDash driver from Ripon, Wisconsin, who uses her tip income to support her son.
It was a huge honor to be able to meet with him and be able to meet with everyone else on stage. Many of the people that were on stage were in very similar situations as myself. So to be able to share our stories, be able to meet the president and know that he is making it one of his top concerns was extremely an honor.
This bill will save Malachi thousands of dollars per year, enabling her to achieve her goal of visiting every U.S. state with her son. And where are you, Malachi? Where are you? Congratulations.
For Krajewski, it's a victory by making her voice heard. Anthony DeBruzzi, Spectrum News.
Luke Wilson.
Joining me now with more on all of this is Garrett Watson, the Director of Policy Analysis at the Tax Foundation, a nonpartisan tax policy research organization. And Mr. Watson, about 4 million workers in the U.S. earn tips on the job. That's a big chunk of the labor force. We're talking about service jobs like the one that we saw, people who drive taxis and deliver meals and work in restaurants and salons and hotels. How much will they benefit from all of this?
Right. So we're seeing this deduction for tips worth up to $25,000 per person. And so that could be for many folks working for tips in the occupations you just outlined, be really meaningful for them. If they have taxable income to offset, that will reduce the amount of tax they pay during tax time. But it does come with a couple of caveats. As you mentioned earlier, there are going to be income limits to this. If you're a very high earner, there is a maximum amount of tips you can deduct. And of course, if you are only taking the standard deduction, if you're a lower income worker, you may see less benefit from this because it's a deduction and not a tax credit that you're getting on top of your normal taxes. One other ambiguity we're watching closely is getting some guidance from the IRS on whether or not this deduction would mostly be taken during tax season when you file your taxes in the spring, or if we'll see withholding adjustments, which would allow tip workers to get that increase in pay, that deduction effectively upfront during the tax year. That can be really important for certain families and workers who are relying on that higher after-tax income during the year rather than during the tax season. So there's still several questions that need to be answered.
Yeah, I really do want to understand the winners and losers here. I saw that some experts are predicting that the policy will really help middle-class tipped workers save money, but not the lower-income workers, because lower-income earners already pay little or no federal income tax, right?
That's right. At the bottom 20% of earners in particular, many of which are working in tipped occupations, are getting the full value of the standard deduction and don't have much additional deduction to take. There's no income tax to offset. And so that will make it a more limited benefit for those workers, though it may encourage them to work more, right? Because you're going to get that tax-free income. The other caveat is you still pay payroll tax on tips. So that those tips will still need to be reported. They'll still need to have payroll tax withheld. So there's still some tax being paid at the end of the day.
I want to ask you about a related policy. Workers under this new law can also now deduct income that they make from overtime pay with a cap set at $12,500. That also phases out for people earning more than $150,000. Who will benefit from that? No tax on overtime.
So the no tax on overtime, it's focused specifically on workers who are receiving premium for their overtime. So if you're getting a time and a half, for example, it's that extra half, that premium portion that you would get no additional tax on that amount. For salaried workers or workers who are exempt from those overtime protections, they will not benefit from this. And it comes with the same limitation that you need to have taxable income to actually take advantage of the deduction. So if you're a low income worker, it may have a more limited benefit to you. If you're a middle income or higher income earner underneath the income limit, this overtime deduction may be for you. Though it's worth mentioning, a lot of workers don't work any overtime or don't take tips, so they're going to see less of a benefit. It's a very targeted benefit to those two groups of workers specifically.
So now, as the new law takes shape, will employers have more reason to maybe pay less in the way of wages or keep the federal and state governments from raising the minimum wage?
I think that's going to be a key part of the debate to look at very closely in the years ahead, because it may be the case that tipped occupations may become more attractive to certain workers and the competition gets more intense. And that will create incentives for certain employers to, if they have the room, right, bid down wages. And there's an interaction there, of course, with the minimum wage. So we'll have to see how attractive these occupations become, how much more labor supply there is from those tipped occupations to see if that's actually an effect. I'm sure that's something that states will be watching very closely.
We're waiting for the Trump administration to publish guidance about how to report these tips and frankly, the overtime pay as well. What should our viewers know in the meantime about the policy, and what kind of paperwork should they be holding on to?
So a couple of things there. One is both of these new deductions are in effect for 2025, meaning in this tax year, when you file your taxes next spring, you're going to be able to take advantage of this deduction. Because the IRS and Treasury are going to have to get guidance out this year, it's likely you won't see much benefit in the meantime until we get to tax season. As I mentioned earlier, one big question is to what extent they might adjust the W-4 and W-2 forms for folks withholding so they can get higher after-tax paychecks during the tax year itself, so they don't have to wait for each tax season to get the value of the deduction. So I think that's one big thing. The other thing that hasn't been mentioned, of course, is these deductions are temporary, so they expire at the end of 2028. So you're only going to have a few years of this. They may be extended in the future, but that's where they're scheduled to last to.
Okay, great guidance. Thank you very much, Garrett Watson. Thanks for talking with me. We are not done just yet. Coming up next, we will talk about the Trump administration's proposed cuts to NASA. Stay with us.
The stories that touch our border affect us all. That's why at Spectrum News Plus, we don't just cover these communities. Our dedicated reporting team also calls them home. That perspective allows us to take an in-depth look, going beyond the politics, to see the impact on people's lives and what it means for you and your community. Balanced border coverage that tells the full story here on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
Spectrum with Paramount Plus is the entertainment destination.
You're gonna love this.
Getting oil out of the ground is the most dangerous job in the world. It's so good to see you.
Come on!
Right now, I am in first gear. Would you like to see me shift to 6?
Stream a mountain of the entertainment you love on Paramount Plus. Included in Spectrum TV Select plans at no extra cost.
What are you doing in there?
What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
For watching The Big Deal. This week, dozens of NASA employees signed a formal letter of dissent urging members of Congress to resist the Trump administration's proposed cuts to the space agency. The White House is asking Congress to slash NASA's budget by almost 25%, which would result in the termination of many science missions. Meanwhile, in Cleveland, Ohio, there was a protest held this week against potential staffing cuts to NASA that are based in that state. It took place on the 56th anniversary of when Neil Armstrong, an Ohio native, made history as the first human to set foot on the moon. Joining me now with more on all of this is Ebeth Bruswell, a political anchor for Spectrum News 13 in Orlando, Florida. Great to see you, Ebeth. And that letter of dissent, which was addressed to Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, the interim administrator of NASA, says, and I'm quoting here, "We are compelled to speak up when our leadership prioritizes political momentum over human safety, scientific advancement, and efficient use of public resources." Do we know why the Trump administration is targeting NASA for cuts?
They're getting doged. That's what's happening here. I don't think anybody should be surprised. The Trump administration is methodically going after different departments to see where they can save money. And I got to say, for this segment, the common denominator, since we're talking about dollars and cents, is that it's about saving money, saving money, saving money, because the Trump administration keeps saying over and over that so many departments are bloated, right? Over bloated with so much staff. Bottom line here, businesses, companies exist to make money. That is the deal, to generate profits. That's the name of the game. So having regulations that hamper them from doing that to their fullest potential, that's always been a political target, no matter the administration, but especially with this one. There's also the issue, right, that Dems keep bringing up about climate change. They say it is real. Republicans say, hang on a second. And we keep seeing things like flooding in Orlando. I have lived here for dozens of years. I've never seen flooding like we've seen recently in downtown Orlando. New York City, I keep seeing the flooding of the subways, all that water coming down like huge cascades. We see Texas and some of the other places. So while this back and forth keeps happening about climate change, jobs are on the line, and the back and forth continues.
Well, let me put up a graphic of some of the missions that would be canceled if the NASA budget cuts go through. We may not need to collect rock samples from Mars. That's one of the missions that's being targeted. But climate monitoring satellites would also be cut back. And that sounds like a kind of an urgent necessity. You sort of alluded to a lot of that. Is anybody in Congress pushing back against these cuts?
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of people also pushing back. It's about jobs. I mean, and we see this across the landscape. It doesn't matter what the industry is. A lot of companies are recalibrating and trying to see how do we save money. So jobs are on the line. And so a lot of folks who are dealing with their constituents, calling them, emailing, having protests saying, you know what, we're not for these cuts, no matter what people think in Washington, D.C., because these are people's livelihoods that are on the line.
And there's the size of the agency. There's also its location. Where you are reporting from in Florida is home to NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Recently, Republicans from Florida have been pushing for NASA to relocate its headquarters, move it from Washington, D.C. down there to Florida. What is their argument, and how likely is that to happen?
I think the argument is still there. I spoke with Congressman Herodopoulos just a little while ago tonight, and he tells me that, look, this is still an active situation. I have a letter right here, a little show and tell for your segment, that I published with Senator Rick Scott, Senator Ashley Moody, and so many other of the Florida delegations saying we want this thing in Florida. And yes, it can be done. I was talking with Greg Perlone, our space reporter for Spectrum News. He says, Ebeth, they want to make sure that the Kennedy Space Center continues to be the hub for NASA and others. SpaceX, we cannot forget about that, and Elon Musk, Blue Origin, and others, to build these components that we need for rocket launches. We have 2, sometimes 3, 4 a week happening on our Space Coast in Florida. And so instead of bringing in parts, they continue to build the components in the state of Florida. And that is one of the key arguments they want. They keep saying, we want NASA headquarters to be moved here because we want this to continue to be one-stop shop for all the rocket building, for the rocket launches to continue, and that's a lot of money on the line, Errol.
All right. Thank you very much, Ebeth Bruswell, on top of that story. Thank you all for joining us for this episode of The Big Deal. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned to your local station.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal.
people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Are you ready for the ultimate entertainment experience? Spectrum is bringing together the streaming apps you love. Plus, live TV for sports, entertainment, and news. All in one place, across your devices. So no matter when or where you are, it's all here. Spectrum.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum.